Welcome back to 50 for 50. This episode is probably going to be on the shorter end, not because this artist is not as significant as others, actually very significant, but it's because my man doesn't put out a lot of new music.
He
Frank
does not.
Ocean.
Yeah, he does not put out a lot of new music. Has not put out a lot of new. Has not put out any new music in a while.
So this is a constant for me, like when it comes to like what would excite me, like who can put out an album that is not like an artist of like my childhood. Of course, if Mariah decided to put out another new album, I'd be like, okay, that's cool, I'll listen to it. But an artist who comes out, as I'm not a young kid anymore when Frank Ocean debuts, and yet I feel like there's so much there. Like I'm just so interested into what he would be into in today's day and age. Or like what are the ideas that he has for music? What would that new Frank Ocean album sound like?
Sure.
So when Blood Orange hit, or Channel Orange, Blood Orange, Channel Orange hits, how much did you know about him, if you remember?
I mean, I don't really remember. I think I knew that he was affiliated with Odd Future. I think at that point, maybe Tyler had something out. He was the most like the most prominent member of Odd Future. I sort of knew who Frank Ocean was, but I sort of didn't. So yeah, I knew very little.
And then there's always been this discussion about the two albums. I don't even. Do you even remember that visual album? Like, how many times did you even hear that one?
Once.
Because it was just on. I just remember it being on iTunes, and it was just like, wasn't it just like one track? Like it didn't even have tracks on it, right? It
I think it had tracks. It's hard for me to remember now, but essentially, like he put that album out to get out of his contract,
right.
And I think it was a full album, but it wasn't like a fully formed. Like there weren't really songs; they were kind of like little vignettes.
Right. Interesting. And then the discussion, and we can actually probably talk about this now. We chose Channel Orange as the focus because it just fit into the timeline from a 2012 perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Channel Orange or Blonde for you, if you had to pick?
Channel Orange. I actually don't like Blonde very much.
Really?
Yeah. I remember being really disappointed in that album when it came out because I was like, Channel Orange has songs. It has songs that have like conventional song structure, two verses, two choruses, a bridge, and a fade out. And I don't know that any song on Blonde is actually like a song in the conventional sense.
I lean towards Channel Orange as well, though I asked two people who hold Frank very highly in their all-time greats, my son Brian and my stepson Felix, and I asked them both. I said, "What album do you guys lean to?" And they both said Blonde. They both said Channel Orange and Blonde are up there for them as far as albums, but Blonde was the one that they leaned towards the most. And I'm with you. I actually like Channel Orange quite a bit better, but I could tell there's a creative like ceiling to Blonde that if you can kind of like think about Frank from this perspective of like this dude is just creative as all hell. I could definitely see why people like that album better.
Yeah, I mean, Blonde is kind of like an art project.
Yeah.
Whereas Channel Orange, I think, is like an album in the traditional sense of what an album is.
All right, so let's go backwards to 2012. And you know what I realized when I was putting together some of these notes? 2012 is kind of like the year of Katy Perry and Adele.
I couldn't have even told you.
January 7th, 2012, Katy Perry's single, The One That Got Away, reaches number 1 on the Hot Dance Club Songs chart, making Teenage Dream the first album in history to have 7 songs from the same album reach number 1 on the Hot Dance Club Songs chart. Also, only the third album in history to have 6 singles from the same album reach the top 5 in the Billboard 100. Is Katy Perry still a thing?
I think so. I think I think she got canceled for a minute, but I think TikTok has revived her.
She's still doing American Idol?
I think so. No, I'm not sure. No, she's not, because I think she got replaced by Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood.
Yeah.
Got it. Wasn't the story with Katy Perry that she like fondled a dude like randomly or something?
I don't think it was a dude. I think it was another woman.
Oh, was it a woman? I thought
I
I thought it was a
yeah,
dude.
I think it was a woman.
Okay. So she was just thinking that everyone was sexually aroused by her or something. Like,
I mean, I don't, she's, I mean, there's a few different ways that she's problematic. I mean, I think one is the whole Russell Brand, uh, being involved with him.
Yep.
I think she's been accused of what the young people call queer baiting for a long time. I mean, she basically got famous with the song about, oh, I'm kissing girls. Isn't this like cute and adorable thing?
Right,
I think actual gay people who get, criticized for stuff like that took offense, as they probably should have. I think she's just kind of been problematic in a few different ways.
Wasn't she also much like Jessica Simpson, like raised
She was
in the
evangelical. Yeah.
Yeah.
She came out, I think, as like a Christian pop artist.
Interesting. So interesting. The rebelliousness. All right. So on January 20th, Etta James passes away at the age of 73. That's Etta James is at last one of the most sung songs like in history.
I feel like most of the weddings I have been to, that song has had a place at it.
Weddings and funerals. I
Really?
feel like it's like crosses over like a bunch of different places. I think like I don't know. It's like that song in of itself is just like that song will last longer than almost any other song I think in pop music or in music.
I mean, it's definitely, it's a standard. I've never really listened to the lyrics enough to determine whether it's like applicable to funerals. Like maybe, I Did It My Way might be like feels like a more funeral oriented song. But I mean, again, I've been to, 2 or 3 dozen weddings over the course of my life, and At Last is pretty constant.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems like it could fit if you wanted it to fit. I'm just looking up the lyrics.
Okay.
It's pretty. It's not very specific as to what the song is about. It's just about love and stuff. So interesting.
Okay.
All right. So Adele, February 4th, 2012. Set Fire to the Rain, which is #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making her album 21 the first album in history to have 3 #1 songs from the same album by a British female artist.
Okay.
This is something that we talked about already on 50 for 50. February 11th, music icon Whitney Houston is found dead at the age of 48 in her Los Angeles hotel room, hours before a pre-Grammy party hosted by Clive Davis.
Yes, indeed.
Yep, sad times. We went through that one.
Yeah.
And so the very next day, the Grammy Awards, which they had to kind of redo to make it somewhat about Whitney Houston. Adele wins 6 awards for 21, including Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Record of the Year. Bon Iver wins Best New Artist, which was an interesting one.
Because he was not a new artist, if I remember correctly.
And Kanye West and the Foo Fighters sweep their respective categories. March 3rd, Adele again becomes the first female artist to have 3 singles in the top 10 in the Billboard 100 at the same time.
Wow.
And the first female artist to have 2 albums in the top 5 of the Billboard 200 and 2 singles in the top 5 of the Billboard 100 simultaneously.
I feel like that's probably happened a lot since, because this is pre-Spotify.
Yes, for sure. And then Katy Perry again, Part of Me debuts at #1 on the Hot 100, becoming only the 20th song in history to debut atop the chart. It's her 7th consecutive top 5. This feels like people figuring out how to game these charts here, because Justin Bieber's Boyfriend has the second highest first week sales of a new single, debuting at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Later on, surpassed by Taylor Swift's We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, with 623,000 sales, making Bieber the third highest first week sale. That is on April the 4th. Another one that we covered, another sad one, is May the 4th. Rapper Adam MCA Yauk of the Beastie Boys dies of cancer at the age of 47.
Wow.
That number, how old he was, still just
it's insane. Yeah. I mean, Whitney was 48. He was 47. You know, it's kind of insane.
Another passing, May 17th, Donna Summer.
Yeah.
At the age of 63.
I remember MC and Donna Summer being like right next to one another.
So the resource that I use here skips a few months, so there's not much left here. I don't know if it was stuff not newsworthy or they just did not have the website in of itself kind of got messed up. But August 12th again, Katy Perry, Wide Awake, peaks at #2, becoming her 9th and final top 10 single from the Teenage Dream era. And then October 22nd, Taylor Swift releases Red, and it sells 1.2 million copies in the first week, debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200, the second highest debut for a female artist. And then 14 years later, she would get married at Madison Square Garden.
I'm sure that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are not bad people. I actually like Travis Kelce. But man, whatever happened to like have a small wedding ceremony with like your friends and family wherever you come from?
You mean not all your business partners?
Yeah, it's so like I don't know. I feel like at this point everything Taylor Swift does kind of doesn't feel great to me. So
how much of this is we've talked about Michael before, and you know, Michael would utilize the media in ways to drive interest in. I mean, that's essentially the later stages of his careers. He's just creating interest in things that he's doing. Like I think what makes this different is Taylor is doing it. This is, it's not because of an album coming out. It's just because these people are willing to pay to, like, I imagine there's going to be some television show about this wedding, right? Like,
yeah, some reality show or some movie. Like, to make your wedding into like a movie and put into if that happens, that to me is like the most crass, like capitalist, gross thing you could possibly like. It just feels, I don't know. It just feels gross.
And if you are Taylor, and I hope that they stay married forever, but they're both, one's a sports celebrity, one's the biggest pop celebrity, the biggest artist in the game right now. And so there's lots of stuff that could happen in their lives just because of how famous they are. But then if you're either of them and something does fall out and whatever happens, they can, it's a rebirth, right? It's the new version of me, and here's how the angle takes. And so it's kind of like, it's just going to keep happening. I think, I don't think there's any stopping no matter what. If Taylor has a child, that's going to be a thing, right?
Yeah. I don't think the terminology "do it for the gram" was around in 2012, but it feels like everything Taylor Swift does, she does for the gram.
What was "do it for the gram" or "do it for the Vine" first?
Oh,
there was a version.
Remember,
there was a version of Vine there for a little bit that, like, well, you could only, it was like a 10 seconds or something of video that you could do on Vine.
It's just, I mean, to me, it's just so crass. Like
Yeah.
I just it it's something that doesn't it didn't feel right when Michael did it.
To
So
her, I imagine she sees herself as a product and she's like, it's all about supply and demand.
right,
I have, this story, I have this product, I have this music, I have a lifestyle that people want to buy, and thus I'm going to give it to them until it goes dry. But that is kind of today's commercialism from her because so Mike and I are going to do an episode on Clive Davis, who passed away. As of our recording, he passed away a little while ago. And Clive Davis tells this story about Bob Dylan. And he says that Bob Dylan um, was signed to Columbia. MGM came in with an offer, and Bob Dylan had either signed it or was in the process of signing it. And then something happened at MGM where there was a possibility for him to undo it and to come back to Columbia. And Clive Davis said Bob Dylan had just gotten in a motorcycle accident, and instead of like Bob Dylan like kind of stepped away, and the mysteriousness of what happened to Bob Dylan kind of created the hype for the next thing that he was going to create.
right.
And not like Bob Dylan is like he wasn't selling, the most records of anybody back then, but the way that he understood his art was to make the album and to let the music kind of sit there and be what it was. And it's just like compared to what, Taylor's doing today. But at the same time, with where the music industry is and how you actually make your living and everything, she's kind of setting this she's creating this strategy that I imagine a lot of other people are going to try and copy, but they're just not famous. Like you have to have a level of fame to do and
Right.
a level of fandom. Like Beyonce, if she wanted to follow a similar template, she doesn't have the widest audience that Taylor has, but she does have a really big audience. And she's done some of those things like Lemonade and the video and all that stuff where you're like,
I mean
okay,
the whole made up Jay-Z cheated on me in the elevator and all that stuff.
she's taking advantage of a story or a narrative and of her power as as a female artist or celebrity who people look up to, but still like not to this level that we see with Taylor. And I kind of wonder, you see some of these younger artists like an Olivia Rodrigo or something, and they kind of look up to Taylor in this way.
Right.
And I wonder if like they think about it like, oh, if I could get here, I could kind of follow in these footsteps. It's kind of it's going to be interesting to see what people can do, but I don't know. I just don't sense that the level of fame or celebrity is going to get to close enough to what Taylor has right now for whatever reason. Like Taylor is not, she's not unique. She's not that interesting. She created this following.
It is the triumph of the mediocre white woman.
But there's so many mediocre white women. Why her?
Because I think she speaks to the fact that there are so many mediocre white women in this world. It's kind of like if I can make it, if she can make it, then I can too. So I think she's a model for just kind of like conceivably average people. But I think what average people don't have is a father with financial backing that can get them in the door in the music industry as a teenager and have them sign a contract. And I also think where Taylor Swift benefits is that she was able to become popular during the era before TikTok and social media and all that stuff, and kind of caught the cusp of that, and then kind of was smart enough to ride it into this era. I don't think anyone that's going to come after her is going to attain a similar level of success.
I've thought about this a little bit. So this may be but not a ton. So this may be a little half baked. This idea. As we know, Taylor Swift, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, they were always kind of a part of this real or fake rivalry that I don't think currently exists. I'm not sure where they all stand with each other.
I mean, I don't think anybody care. I don't think they care. I think they're just out of their orbits.
But Kim Kardashian did it a different way. She did not become famous in the same way that Taylor Swift became famous.
Kim Kardashian got famous for taking back shots.
Yes. Poor Ray J, man. He did not get that famous.
No, we did not.
But I think there's a kind of a parallel of how they both are able to take advantage of today's obsession with pop culture and celebrity. Now, Taylor has the music aspect of it. Now, there is something in the art form, in the talent of hers to be able to cultivate that from music. Kim doesn't have that, though she has still been able to build businesses around reality television and celebrity. But
Right.
I think they both are able to take advantage of the current situation in similar ways, even if they got there in different ways.
I mean, it's kind of like, on one hand, get your bag. On the other hand, I mean, the idea that there are people that admire Kim Kardashian makes me want to throw up.
I mean, she's attractive. That's about it.
Eh,
I think she's attractive, but it's also, there's lots of work that has been done.
right. There are plenty of attractive people out there.
Do you remember when Paris and Nicole had that show?
Yeah.
Didn't they used to make fun of Kim on that show, even though they were all friends? But
yeah,
it was like, because Kim's family wasn't quite as rich as theirs.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, at the very least, Taylor Swift is a talented, she's a talented songwriter, talented musician. Makes catchy music. Like, there's that. I don't know, man. I feel like all of those people are kind of cut from the same cloth, and
they are opposites on the booty spectrum, though.
I mean, for sure. And there's also a piece of the Taylor Kanye narrative where I sort of feel like Taylor maybe
the damsel in distress against
kind of cashed the check against the poor white girl against the big angry black man, and kind of rode that narrative a little bit, which again is gross. But I mean, not that Kanye's completely or at all innocent here either.
No.
So it's just it's like a cesspool of grossness.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Frank.
Yeah.
Do you know how my man got his name?
Didn't it have something to do with New Orleans and Katrina or something like that?
So it's part Frank Sinatra.
Oh.
And part Ocean's 11.
Oh. I was totally wrong.
I didn't know that either. And I just rewatched Ocean's 11 like a week ago.
Okay.
So he's born Christopher Edwin Breaux, Breaux, Breaux.
It might be bro. It's one of those like Creole New Orleans French things.
He was actually born in California.
Oh, okay.
And then the family relocated
to New Orleans.
To New Orleans when he was 5.
Okay.
And that's kind of where he's exposed to the music and to the environment. Pops, I guess Pops was not around post his very young years, but Mom's, I think a lot of her influences became his influences, and talk about knowing what you want to do. According to the research, at 13 years old, he was like, "I'm going to be a songwriter." That's wild. Like, he didn't. I mean, I was. I don't even think I was writing good papers yet at 13 years old. So he had kind of done some stuff to kind of fund this idea of being in music, side jobs and stuff at a very young age. And when he reinvented himself with the Frank Sinatra and Ocean's 11 tag, he became Frank Ocean.
Oh.
And then you were right about the Katrina thing, because in 2005, the storm destroys the recording facility that he's using at the time, and that's when he realized he needed to move back to California to really pursue his career.
Okay.
So he joined Odd Future in 2010. So Tyler, the Creator, and who's the rest of Odd Future?
I mean,
Earl.
there's Earl Sweatshirt. There's Sid. There's a whole bunch. I mean, Odd Future's kind of like a rotating cast, but yeah, I mean, Tyler and Earl, Sid, Steve Lacy, the internet, all of those people are all sort of like in the Odd Future universe.
So he does a song, or he writes a song for Justin Bieber's debut EP, My World. It's called Bigger, and it makes the cut of the album. And that was kind of the validation that he was moving in the right direction. But he had written songs for other people as well, which we'll get to, that actually did make albums and such. And so he puts out his mixtape, Nostalgia Ultra. Have you heard this before, this album?
Yeah. Yep.
Was it? How was it?
I mean, Nostalgia Ultra actually might be better than Channel Orange.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it was like a mixtape that made it on all like the best of lists, because I remember thinking, like, how do you even listen to this thing? Like, where do you find it?
I mean, it was on like DatPiff, and you know, back in the day, you had all of those kind of like music blogs that you could download music from.
Is it out there now? Because when I looked for Frank's stuff, I only saw the 2 albums.
There's a couple of songs on streaming services, but not the whole album. I think there was there's definitely some sample clearance issues that he would have to take care of if that album was to be made commercially available.
So before Channel Orange drops, he posts on Tumblr. Did you have a Tumblr?
I've had multiple Tumblrs.
I always thought Tumblr was a very cool service that, I don't know why it didn't take off bigger than it did, or why it didn't last. Maybe just blogging in of itself kind of was,
I think blogging went away. Yeah.
But I always thought that was such a cool service.
I also think Tumblr, there was an issue with Tumblr where they, for a period of time, decided that they were not going to host adult content anymore.
There was a lot of adult content on Tumblr.
Yeah, and there was a lot of porn on Tumblr. And I think a lot of people, there was an exodus as a result of that, and it just never came back from that. Even though I do think that now adult material is allowed on Tumblr again.
I haven't thought about Tumblr in quite a while, and I know there are some Tumblr accounts that I have that are out there that,
yeah, for sure.
If we had any foresight to creating all of these accounts, I think we'd probably delete all of them. But I have no idea where my name is on so many websites.
Yeah, seriously. Until there's a data breach.
Yeah. Okay, so before Channel Orange drops, he goes on Tumblr. He publishes a letter recounting his first love at 19, a young man who changed his perspective on sexuality and identity. And do you remember, like, how was that received back then?
I think that a lot of people were surprised. I think that, there was no precedent for that, right? Right. Frank Ocean was like this big deal, about to release a huge record, and he was, in terms of like Black men and queerness, he was the first.
Yeah.
There wasn't anybody in the R&B world or the hip hop world who was a person of color, who was young and who was out. Everybody that was out to that point had either been outed posthumously,
right,
or were kind of past their prime, like weren't really commercially viable anymore. So again, Frank Ocean was like at that time, one of one. And it was like, it was all over the news, all over Twitter, all over everything. Like it was a big deal. Um, Again, because, and also because he was adjacent to the hip hop world, and
Yes.
hip hop
A hip
is,
hop world that was not kind historically.
and still isn't, you know.
Well,
Um,
I don't listen to any new hip hop songs, so
yeah,
I
it
don't know.
still isn't, but it's still very much like a genre that is centered around toxic masculinity in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. So I think people were applauding the bravery of Frank Ocean, and it was a big deal.
I've always thought about this, and we've had this conversation on different topics, but when you listen to songs from your youth that have homophobic slurs or that have, and I'll just tease this. We're gonna do an episode on Wu-Tang on
Right.
their first album, but also I want to focus on kind of how everybody created a solo career out of that first album. And I'm listening to all of these albums, and Bobby Digital, of all of the albums, like this album does not age well. My man
Mm,
is mad at women. He is just someone did him wrong, and he's taking it out on a singular woman on this album because there's
mm.
multiple songs where it's just, just really, really negative. But when we grew up, it, it was like just kind of part of the music, whether there was homophobia or whether there was just negativity towards women, different races, and we just kind of took that as part of the story of the person who was telling it.
I
And
mean,
now as guys, again, 50 for 50, like can you listen to it in the same way? Like how do you deal with that?
nah. For Detox, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I did an episode with my man Kevin Patterson, who is, we're about the same age. He grew up in like Jersey. I grew up in Brooklyn. Both, major like hip hop heads. And he is only now sort of coming into his queerness or identifying his
Mm-hmm.
queerness, whereas I've been in or out, for most of my adult life. And, you know, we talked about being hip hop fans and being hip hop fans who are, either allies or part of the queer community. And the way he put it was like, he was like, I think about it the way a lot of women who love hip hop think about it, where it's like, they're not talking about me. And it's kind of cognitive dissonance that I understand, but also it's like they are talking about you.
Right.
Like you can't, like you're just playing mind tricks on yourself if you don't think that they're talking about you. Like, so it's hard, right? Because I come from that environment, and when I was 17, 18, 19 years old or younger, I was calling people faggots. Like I was talking wild shit too.
Yeah.
But some of these people never grew out of that.
Yeah.
And I think, there's somebody like Common who has, early in his career made some records that had like some questionable homophobic shit on it, and then kind of turned around and has made records that are now supportive of the queer community. And it's like, if you show that narrative arc, that makes the difficult stuff a little bit
Right.
easier to listen to. But
Like there are songs that I grew up listening to that I would get pumped up at with DMX that I
yeah,
absolutely cannot listen to anymore. And they still
yeah,
play them on the radio.
yeah. I never really fucked with DMX like that. But there's Punks Jump Up to Get Beat Down by Brand Nubians, which is like 100% homophobic. And I fucked with that song hard as a kid, and I can't listen to it now. Biggie says faggot a couple of times already to end Life After Death, and I can't really listen to that shit now. So it's like I understand the space that it came from, because I came from that space too. But I can't, as a 50-year-old in good conscience, listen to even, going back to Wu-Tang, there's a song on a Ghostface album called Nutmeg with him and RZA. And it is just, there is some, RZA's verse in particular is some wild, like misogynist, like kind of gross shit. Um, and I
This is the Bobby
There's a Bobby
Digital.
Digital, yeah. And or the skit before Method Man where he's talking about I'm gonna like tape your asshole shut and
Oh
like
yeah,
blah blah.
yeah.
I can't listen to any of that stuff anymore. It's just like it's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're off a little bit of a
Yeah,
tangent,
I mean that's a tangent.
but I think because of who Frank is, I think this is actually a good conversation because when you and I first met, how long was it? Because you told me you were like that, like this is who I am, and I was like, oh, like because I didn't, we were in this community, and how you identified. I don't remember if I thought, oh yeah, but you had even told me when you were younger that you dated women and stuff to
Sure.
kind of figure things out. But do you think that, or have you even thought about how many people you have either comforted or influenced or helped get through this process that you yourself had to do? And I'm sure you may have had a mentor or two yourself, but like, have you been, are you cognizant of that, of like how you have helped people or been a shoulder to cry on or an ear for people?
To a degree. Um I there have been people who have articulated to me that I have been a model for them to either confront their own homophobia or sort of walk out of the closet themselves. And that's a great feeling. um I think everybody kind of has a responsibility to model behavior for people. um yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your question, yes, I have. It has been stated to me explicitly that I mean, and I don't know what the magnitude of that is. I'm sure there are people that I have helped or influenced that have not reflected that back to me. But I'm fortunate that on some occasions it has been reflected back to me. I guess that's
and
what I'm trying to say.
and not that you're doing it for back pats or for like thank yous or anything, but I think like you should feel that acknowledgement, and you should feel that that is, I think that is something to be very proud of,
I
to be
mean,
that person for others.
and I don't do it for backpats. I do it because I think it's really important to live your life authentically. But also I do it because there wasn't really anybody that did that for me.
Yeah.
I was a whole adult before I met another openly gay or bisexual man. And definitely a full ass adult before I met another openly gay or bisexual black man, I should say. There was a black girl in high school that was out as lesbian. Um, so it's like, you know, had there been somebody like that in my life when I was younger, maybe the process of coming out as a young adult might have been a little easier, or I'd have had somebody to confide in that I felt more comfortable around, or whatever it was. And now people have social media, and there are all these supportive
Yep.
avenues that don't necessarily require somebody to be right in front of you to model the behavior. But at our age, like, we didn't have that back then.
Yeah, for sure. Um, in my kind of inner community with the other podcast that I do, BSPN, and I cover Bay Area sports. The team that my favorite baseball team that I grew up with, that we cover, they had a situation where they hosted Pride Night, and
I read about this.
they had 4 players.
Mhm.
3 of them wrote a Bible verse that I think has been kind of used and abused by folks who want to show how against homophobia they are, and they use Jesus's words, right, in this. And then there was another guy who just would refuse to wear the pride hat, which is, I think Major League Baseball gives the folks the freedom to not wear the pride hat if they don't want to.
Right.
So these 4 people, in San Francisco, of all places,
Yeah.
decided to do this demonstration. And, it was really the talk of the town. And how do you separate your fandom from something like this? But me and my co-host, Brad, we were pretty public with our feelings of like, this stuff just doesn't cut it, man. Like,
Right.
it if you believe that you're doing this to show your religious community how religious you still are, like there's this other piece of it. And to me, I'm going to say the majority, of people who you're basically saying, I'm against this. And so
Right.
that's being a bigot. And to your religious community, you're thinking that you're showing some loyalty and some trust. And so, we really put it on the management as far as like, where's the leadership? Where are the vocal leaders to basically tell the community that these guys, kind of rallied against, like rebelliously,
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, they did this, but this is not what we stand for. And it was tired. It was just a bunch of social media posts and some emails, and nobody really got out there in
Nobody
front of
stood
it.
up. Yeah. I mean, first of
And
all, go ahead.
no, I was just saying I was so disappointed. And, I'm not going to go out here and say, like, growing up, like, I even understood how to stand up against that kind of hate. I was taught as a young person, like, if you have the opportunity to stick up for someone who needs help, you can help stand for someone who needs help. Like that's your privilege and that's your responsibility to do so. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't really equate it to to homosexuals or heterosexuals or anything. It was more along the lines of like, someone smaller than you, or maybe someone who's a different race than you, and
Yeah.
and this person is picking on them for some reason. But that like is still pretty instinctual to me, is to go like, okay, this is wrong. Here's this community that really can't stick up for themselves in the same way because of the national politics going on right now. So it's like I have this tiny little podcast, but we made it a point to have this conversation because it's like, man, how if anything, being out here in California in the Bay Area, you feel like most people get it. And here are 3 people or 4 people playing for this baseball team that absolutely did not. And then the hierarchy who absolutely did not know how to clean this up in any way. And it's still out there.
Right.
It happened a while ago. So it's not as there's not as much conversation, but the haze is still there. I'm just like,
Yeah.
you guys
wouldn't.
just haven't figured it out.
First of all, it's like, motherfucker, you in San Francisco. San Francisco is like gay people ground zero.
Yeah.
And you're playing in San Francisco. You must know that there are plenty of people on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum that come to your games or are fans of your team or like whatever. Like, whatever your beliefs are, don't come out and disrespect the people that pay your salary.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, if you have an issue with people on account of their sexual orientation, like keep that in your pocket. Don't, you don't need to make a statement. And I think because of the political climate right now, there are people that feel empowered to make these kind of statements. And, if I was a San Francisco Giants fan, I would be really, really disappointed. I mean, the same way that, it just came out that MSG, Dolan had people kind of keep a log of all the celebrities that came to the Garden, and we're like keeping track of like, queer celebrities. I'm not going to another event at Madison Square Garden. Like, I don't know. People are like pushing stuff under the rug. People aren't like standing up for disprivilege. People certainly aren't reading the Bible. And all of these dudes who are like writing chapter and verse in scripture, like on the caps and shit like that.
Turning the Bible into memes is what
right,
they're doing.
Right. I'm like, I bet if we go through the Bible right now, we can find 10 things in there that are against that you're doing that are against what's in the Bible.
Yep.
Like so it's just like you don't even have a leg to stand on. So I don't know. Like I mean that shit leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But I really I certainly appreciate people who are allies and do stand up to things like that.
There's
Use
always
whatever audience you have.
and there's always the conversation of stick to sports or whatever. They are a I don't know. I don't sports teams technically companies. I don't know the exact designation, but like there's excuses as to why people don't care, or maybe it eases themselves. They ease themselves to not care because they don't think about things like this.
Absolutely.
But I think our show, there's a small audience. I don't know if we turn people away with the conversation, but for Brad and myself, we're like, no, like this affects us as men in our 50s and how we view the world versus what we see as like a kind of a going backwards in a sense, right? I think a lot of people feel that way with the current president, that it's like we were evolving in certain ways and now we're kind of like going backwards. And so like,
I mean, you gotta stand on business in the platform and use the platforms that you have to stand up for your beliefs. And I mean, obviously there are situations in which you may have to be a little bit quieter about them than some others. But if you created a platform, you have the ability to say and do whatever you want. And I do think that people who do have platforms like this, and your other podcast platforms, should be using those platforms to not just talk about music or sports or whatever it is, but to, shed light on things that are going on that affect people in their lives. And, bottom line is, this particular podcast, for the people that are watching, there is, I mean, we're both people of color. I am a member of the queer community. And if you don't like people of color, if you don't like queer people, you should not be listening to this podcast.
Yes, I agree with that because, that's kind of just who we are and what we stand for and what we will continue to stand for, and what, people close to us, who are really close to us, will always stand for too.
Correct.
So.
Right.
All right, let's get back to Frank, but I'm happy that we had that conversation, because when I listen to Frank Ocean, or when I think about Frank Ocean, I do think about that moment and how courageous it was. And, as a young person, how, again, like kind of what I said about you, how many people he comforted in that moment, how many people he supported in that moment who were like, I feel seen in that
How
way.
many people felt seen?
Yeah.
That I think was the biggest takeaway from that whole thing, is that there's always been gay people in hip hop. There's always been, I mean, and not even gay, because, I believe that, I don't know what Frank's sexual orientation is. I assume he's bisexual because he still has sung about women.
Right.
There has never been a moment in hip hop or any musical genre where there are not queer people in the room. They may not be out to you, they might not be out to themselves, but every genre, every city, every community, everything, there are queer people in it. And I think he allowed queer people, queer men in particular, to be seen for the first time. And he's not he is a rapper, I guess, kind of. He raps on occasion, to be seen in the hip hop community.
So Channel Orange drops soon thereafter, and it is just a great album. Like, it is like right out of the gate. I think it hit immediately, and the impact was really felt like almost immediately. It's not like this thing sold the most records. Like, we just went over the Taylor Swift and the Katy Perry numbers. Those are the ones, and Adele, those are the ones that are selling all these records. But
yeah,
when like to me, you put Channel Orange up against any of their works. Adele is a little bit different because she's been able to kind of do the reverse of the Taylor Swift in a sense, which is kind of stay out of public mind and then come back and put an album out and then sell it again and kind of go back into hiding. But Frank, the impact of this album, I think, is huge compared to the record sales that it did.
Yeah, 100%.
So it debuts at number 2, selling 131,000 copies his first week. The first single, Thinking About You, was his highest charting single, reaching 32. There were other singles, Pyramid, Sweet Life, Lost, Super Rich Kids, but they weren't really commercial songs in the way of that you would hear things on radio.
Nah.
And so, from a critical standpoint, one of the best reviewed albums of the year. We'll get to the Grammys in a second because I have some beef with what was going on there. And I think he's pretty influential to today's artists. Like I don't know who kind of wears his name on their sleeve as far as influences, but I hear that in some of the artists that I can actually stomach these days.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much anybody who makes R&B that's a little different sounding now, I think. And to call Frank Ocean R&B is kind of weird because it's not really R&B music.
Yeah.
But everybody from, and like I feel bad because I'm not plugged in to modern music as much, but even like there's a dude out, Duran Bernard, that I really, really like, who is openly gay and is able to like get down with the hip hop community and make records that feature like Vince Staples and like all these other people. And, there wouldn't be a Duran Bernard if there wasn't a Frank Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tyler kind of came out at some point, and I don't even know if that would have been possible without Frank Ocean.
Right.
And one thing about that album in particular that I think is really interesting is how many people like pulled up to be on that record. Like Pharrell's on that record, John Mayer's on that record, Andre 3000's on that record.
Andre 3000's on both albums, Blonde too.
Is he on Blonde?
I think he's on Blonde as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, and I also don't think that album came with like credits or anything like that, so I have no clue who's on that record.
Yeah, I was listening to both of them, and I was like, oh, Andre's on this one too.
Yeah, speaking of people who said homophobic things at one point in their career and completely reversed course, but he got like the cream of the crop on his record.
Yes.
And didn't need it because he's, a self-contained singer-songwriter.
So the albums, we mentioned the mixtape. So Channel Orange is 2012. Endless is the visual album. That was the last album on Def Jam. And the very next day, Blonde comes out, which is his self-released project. And Blonde, he had the hype from Channel Orange, and it's like, okay, we want more of this dude, and he's still doing. He's on hooks. He's writing stuff still, so he's out there, but he makes people wait for 4 years for Blonde to come out,
right?
And Blonde hit pretty big.
Yeah,
it was. I think people were like, okay, like this dude is absolutely 100% for real. Rookie album is awesome. Sophomore album is awesome. Like he's here to stay. And then he just wasn't, like, as far as new music is concerned, because here we are here 10 years later, and there has been no follow-up.
Nope. Frank Ocean pulled the Lauryn Hill.
No, I don't think for the same reasons, though.
No. I think Frank was just like, I got my money. I'm going to do me. And he pops up on like other people's records from time to time. But I think he's just kind of like living his life.
All right, some other songwriting credits for Frank. So we mentioned the Bieber album. I guess Beyonce's "I Miss You" is a Frank Ocean song. A couple of songs from Human, 2012's Human, the Brandy album that we talked about. First in Love and Lock It are his. Girl on Fire. I didn't know Girl on Fire was a Frank Ocean song.
But Alicia Keys?
Yeah. He has a writing credit on Girl on Fire. I don't know what the song is. Oh, so maybe it's not. Maybe it's not the actual song "Girl on Fire,"
Song?
but there's
Wow.
he's got a writing credit on that album. And quickly,
By John Legend and Brandy.
yeah,
That's a really good song too.
yeah. So, No Church in the Wild. Holy shit.
That's such a great song.
Everything about that, I mean, the Kanye stuff is the Kanye stuff, but we talked about why we chose to review that album
Right.
versus a solo Kanye album. That is like a insanely creative yet perfectly put together hip hop song with two guys at the peak of their powers, and then you got this other dude who kind of steals it from them, I think. Like I like Jay's rhymes on that album,
Right.
but when I listen to that, the hauntingness of that track, what I'm expecting to hear is Frank Ocean's voice.
Yeah, I mean every element of that song I think is really special, from like the production to that sort of like auto-tune part by the Dream, like all of that stuff is really cool. But I think Frank's chorus, like as much as the song has a chorus, I guess, is really integral to that song.
And then he's also on another song with Kanye. Or is Kanye on this one? Made in America, or is that just a Jay-Z track?
I think both of them are on it. I can't remember that song well enough to tell you for sure.
I guess it is on Watch the Throne as well.
Yeah, it's on Watch the Throne.
Yeah, but that song is not as good.
No.
But still, the best part of that song to me is Frank Ocean's voice. So
yeah.
Kudos to Frank.
Yeah, and then he was on a couple of songs on 444. Like, I mean, him and Jay have done quite a few records together.
So if we fast forward to kind of the making of Channel Orange. So do you know how to pronounce the name of the producer? Malay? Malay? M-A-L-A-Y.
I'm not sure.
So Frank wanted to write all of the songs in like a short amount of time, but I think through the influence of the producer, like, let's take some time here. The album title, now I don't even understand really what this means. Channel Orange references grapheme color synesthesia, a neurological phenomenon where letters, numbers, or sounds trigger the perception of colors. And he chose the orange as a reference to the hue he perceived during the summer he fell in love. So he saw the color orange, and when he fell in love. Wild. This dude is just creative on different levels for me to even understand.
Saying that, I mean, I've definitely, like, synesthesia is when people hear things and they see colors as a result of what they hear. Which I think a few musicians experience that, but I mean, that is pretty creative.
Yeah, it's very creative. So what is your favorite song on this album?
Man, that's hard. Probably Super Rich Kids.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that there's actually an episode of Good Times playing in the background for the entire song.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's super creative. Thinking About You is a great song. I think from like a songwriting perspective, Bad Religion, that song just, like, I almost can't listen to that song because that's just like, that's one of those songs that like hits me a certain way.
Right.
I think if you've ever had feelings for someone who did not return those feelings for you, it's gonna, like, that song is gonna hit a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of great songs on that album.
The thing that I think is maybe like the best thing I could say about it is there are songs that I like a little bit more than others.
Mm-hmm.
But they connect to each other in a way where I sometimes get lost in what song is on because the
Mm.
album just feels like one long song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like sometimes like when I was doing the re-listening, I had to listen to this album upwards of like 6 or 7 times because I'd have it on in the background and I'm working, and then I look at the song title and I was like, wait, what happened to the other 5 songs that I just listened to? It's
Yeah.
just because they just flowed together so well. Blonde is like that similarly. In my re-listens, it's just like you just kind of get lost in the vibe and the ambiance and the music. And I don't even really think about like what song is coming on. Like, oh, I can't wait for this song, my favorite song. It's just there and it just goes. And
Yeah.
the biggest compliment I can pay this album.
I agree. I mean, it's, you know, I'm not going to compare Frank Ocean to Stevie, but if you listen to an album like Intervisions or you listen to an album like Talking Book, it is really hard sometimes to separate the songs because the album is such like uh, a complete piece. And Channel Orange kind of feels the same way.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to compare the two artists, but like there's a like this is like a descendant in a
Right.
sense. I think
Right.
like he Frank, like I don't know how much Stevie Frank listened to, but
I feel like he probably heard quite a bit of
yeah,
it.
I would guess. But like thinking going back to the synesthesia thing, like I don't know that Stevie being a blind man, like I don't know how he associates color or whatever, like that whole thought process, but like he's hearing things and seeing things that other artists aren't seeing, and I imagine that Frank is a similar way.
Right.
All right, so let's hit our Grammy Redux situation here, because when I look back at this stuff, I couldn't actually believe what happened at the 2013 Grammys.
I'm bracing myself.
Okay, so let's start with Best New Artist. Okay, the nominees: the Lumineers, Hunter Hayes, Frank Ocean, Alabama Shakes, and Fun.
Didn't Fun win that
Fun won this.
and then broke up right after? Uh, I mean, I, you know, Frank Ocean is certainly my favorite of those 5. I don't, I think all 5 of those artists are talented in their own right and whatever. But I mean, if I was Mr. Grammy, like Frank Ocean would have gotten that award for me.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, now we'll go Album of the Year, because Channel Orange is nominated for Album of the Year. The other nominees: Fun with Some Nights, The Black Keys, El Camino, Jack White, Blunderbuss, and Mumford & Sons for Babel.
I mean, Mumford & Sons won that award. Again, I would have given that award to Frank Ocean. It's just, I love Jack White. I like the Black Keys. Um, you know, Fun was kind of cool for what they were in that particular moment. But I do think that Frank Ocean album is the one of those 5 that like sticks for me.
So then, for the 2017 Grammys, Frank's like, nah, not even letting this
Yeah, he
album
wasn't
be nominated.
Well, there was some beef because um Frank performed on the Grammys the Channel Orange year, and the performance wasn't very good. I don't think Frank Ocean is a particularly good live performer. Um and I believe the Grammy producers like actually said something about his performance and like were really critical of it. And like Frank clapped back and was like, I don't need a fucking Grammy anyway, like fuck y'all. And then, very deliberately kept Blonde out of the didn't even submit it for nomination.
So he did win for Best Urban Contemporary Album for Channel Orange, and then No Church in the Wild wins for Best Rap Sung Collaboration.
Right.
Well, We were not going to do a Jammin' Lewis or LaFace segment because you don't understand Frank Ocean if we even run this through that process.
Yeah, that's yeah.
But I guess if you were to predict, now here we are in July of 2016. Do we see a Frank song? Do we see a Frank album? Is he just going to be guesting on stuff? Like what? How will we see him? Because I want another album. I
I would love
imagine
another
there's
album.
tons of other people who want another album. I know
Yeah,
my two kids that I mentioned, they would break down the doors to get another album. And do we see one? Do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's on his Lauryn Hill shit, and it's just like I'm doing, but on a much much more mentally stable version of it. And he's like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. I think he's thinking about like heard he was like making a movie. So who knows? He might. I think he just wants to do like cool, weird shit.
Hey, he's part of the odd future, man.
Yeah. If Jay makes another record, maybe maybe Frank will pull up for that.
Jay is doing some concerts this weekend, right?
Yeah, the Yankee Stadium concerts are this weekend.
Did you hear anything about it?
I mean, I heard they were. I mean, I've seen people posting videos of them there, which to me is insane because those tickets are like $500 a pop, and like I'm not paying $500 to see Jesus. So that like the idea of that is kind of like, again, it's kind of gross to me. And like shame on Jay. Like you got enough money, you could have made this affordable for some of your day ones.
You know why they do that though? I
Why?
mean, you know why, but
Yeah.
maybe the audience doesn't. It's because the secondary market is off the charts.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you give the money to the brokers or do you keep the money? Like it's kind of a no-win there, I think.
Yeah, it's insane. But I've heard good things about the shows. Like he brought out, uh Beyonce obviously in Blue Ivy came out and did some stuff with him. Eminem came out, Slick Rick came out. He's had
Pharrell, I think Pharrell.
Yeah,
was there
Pharrell, yeah.
and I saw Nas was
Right.
wearing like a Daryl Strawberry jacket or something. Because
Yeah.
I thought Daryl was pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Jay and Nas did some stuff together.
Where
So,
was Frank? Frank should have been out there. Come on.
I mean,
Jay.
it maybe if they do he's celebrating very specific anniversaries, and I don't know that
sure.
Frank was a part of any of that stuff.
No.
So yeah.
Frank wasn't even a thought at that point.
Yeah.
All right. That is it from here. Like we said, the Frank didn't get the full on way that we normally do these albums, but it's because Frank he's keeping it to himself. He's not putting out a ton of stuff, but I still think this was
tight discography.
I loved this conversation because I knew some of the themes that we were going to hit. Hopefully people enjoyed it as well. So we'll be back later this week with a cool check-in because we're not going to have a top 5 for Frank.
Right.
But we're going to do an episode on physical media, including vinyl. And I want to talk to Mike about his collection and maybe some grails that are still out there that he wants and such. So, all right, 50for50.net if you want to check us out. All the stuff in the archives on the website. So for Mike, I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.